Okay, welcome to the Operator SDK Issue Triage meeting. Let me just share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, can everybody see my screen fine?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. We have 8 issues to go through today. Before we do that, I want to make a quick announcement. For those who don't know, the CNCF recently changed their default Zoom meeting instructions such that you have to have a password for each meeting. And that password is 77777, so 5 sevens. It was in the email that they sent out. And I will be posting an update about that to the Operator Framework Google group after this meeting, but I didn't realize that the change went into effect today. So I removed that requirement for this particular meeting. I'll be adding it back for all future Operator SDK related meetings. Just be aware of that.
Is that password just for hosts or is that participants as well?
For participants, it's for everybody. It's a really simple password. I think it's just to avoid a scenario where random people bomb into a meeting and disrupt it. So you should only have that password if you're part of the Kubernetes community. All right, we will get started with this first one, unrecognized import path. So it looks like there's a dependency that was not resolving correctly, according to Joe, due to a Go proxy issue. So this either needs to be pinned or has been pinned. It doesn't look like there's a related pull request. So this probably needs to be dealt with ASAP in this way. And then down here, it looks like once we rebase onto or bump case dependencies to 1.20, then we can remove this. So we should probably add it to do in the PR that fixes this. And because this issue happens with the current SDK release and it's a pretty easy fix, we can definitely get this into the next release, unless anybody has any objections. Okay. Clean up after test end-to-end funcs for Ansible how to go. So Camilla is off this week, so she won't be able to explain this. But it looks
if I remember right, we talked about this last week and we decided to skip it.
Gotcha. So this has been assigned, which is potentially problematic because we haven't really addressed it yet.
Oh, I think this was the follow-up to comments from a PR, and the person assigned to it is the one who submitted the original PR. So I think that's what these are. This is cleanup tasks based on feedback from the other PR.
Okay. So I think because...
And I think that's why we skipped it.
This person clearly already has some context about what they're doing. I would say if they do submit a PR for it, then we can review it then. But I'm not going to, obviously, I'm not going to put this into any actual release milestone because this doesn't even pertain to user-facing code. And it's not like a priority by any means. So I'm just going to put this in the backlog for now, and we can revisit this in the future. I mean, we go through PRs anyway. I don't think this is going to slip through the cracks necessarily.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure about the context of this. So I don't want to make any further judgments.
I think what we agreed to last time was that this just needed more information from that. And then that would be fine. But I think backlog is going to be fine today.
Okay. remove outdated docs from master. So as many of you know, I've talked about this a few times, the enhancements repo in the operator framework organization is where pretty much all enhancements should be going that relate to the operator framework as a whole or multiple repositories such as the OLM integration and the SDK. In the Operator SDK repo itself, and I think a few other repos, there are proposal and design and related named directories that contain enhancements that are specific to the project itself. So that don't touch other parts of the operator framework. And we were talking a little bit about this last triage meeting, I believe, about removing both of those directories. If I recall correctly, I said we should definitely remove design, but the proposals directory should stick around because there are still proposals that are only related to the SDK. One recently that came up is changing the release process for the SDK. So that I don't think is a good fit for the enhancement repo as the enhancement repo is currently organized. So we should probably keep that for right now, but I think removing the design directory is fine. So this is the documentation issue. And I think there might actually be a PR for this already, but it's not linked here. So yeah, if it does exist, then I can ping Camilla to link this particular issue in the PR. And this is like a really, low-hanging piece of fruit, and is super easy to do. So I would probably just put this in the backlog. Yeah. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay.
Just a general comment. It might be good to have something about this in our contributor documentation so that people know where to look, especially if it's in another repo. It might not necessarily be seen by everybody.
I think I actually had a task assigned to me a while back to do something about that, and I dropped the ball. It was either me or somebody else, but I think it was me. So let me make sure that is documented right after this meeting.
I think that would be in scope for this PR since that's against the Operator SDK repo. So that, just drop a link to where those actually should belong.
Sure. Need to keep the Ansible log of first reconcile. First log of reconcile may be overwritten. This is interesting. I don't know anything about logs being overwritten necessarily.
I assume that these are rolling logs, so I'm guessing that's how it gets overwritten.
Yeah. But shouldn't you be able to configure this to log to somewhere that it wouldn't be overwritten? Like if it's printing to a console, for example?
Also, if he's dumping the logs to temp, it might be some weirdness going on with the OS getting rid of it.
Okay.
I don't think that would happen by default, but I'm pretty sure that's configurable. So.
Yeah, it could be like the OS is coming in and cleaning up temp. for a really older file because it says it has the latest 20 reconciles.
Right.
Particularly Ansible's in verbose mode, it can be like a lot. So if that file has a max size,
Can I assign one of you who knows a little bit more about this issue?
yeah, I'll follow up with it.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this is looking like support for right now. Thank you. And because this is a support ticket, we'll move it into the backlog. This also doesn't sound like a feature request, even though I added one last time, and the issue is a feature request. So I guess we'll leave that for now and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Have some way to know what dependent resource was touched to trigger an Ansible operator reconciliation. So Austin, I think you know a lot about this. So if you want to talk about it.
I wouldn't say a lot, but I did find I do think this seems like it'd be very helpful to just know what event triggered your reconcile. But it seems like that would be useful in operators other than the Ansible operator or Ansible-based operators. So I filed an upstream issue with controller runtime. And if I can get some love up there, we could, I think, implement this generically so that every operator would log in the event that's triggering a new reconcile.
Right. So while this is an upstream issue, I mean, this actually isn't an upstream issue because they're asking specifically for this feature in Ansible. So we would handle this here. But I would definitely say that feature request. And this is, yeah, another thing I would move to the backlog and probably something we would touch on in a future grooming meeting, which I'll talk about at the end of this session. But yeah, thanks for filing an issue about this upstream.
Sure. If you want, you can assign me to that, or I'll just assign myself.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Thanks. Operator scope doc suggestion for improvements. Right. So there was a recent PR that was merged that tried to clarify how operator scope can be configured in Go operators. And the changes were helpful to some degree, but I think we can organize that document a lot better because it's not exactly clear what the separation of, or what the separate changes needed for each type of operator scope look like. So I think this format where you have different types of watches, all namespace, single namespace, multiple namespaces, and how you would set this up in the manager would be, yeah, a better organization. So I can take this on. This is already assigned to me.
We've got that funny milestone for the post 1.0 docs push. I think this could belong there.
That seems reasonable. Do we have like an ETA on that milestone, like as far as like our release goes?
No, it's been bumped a couple times.
Yeah, there's 21 open issues. We definitely got to make a push on this and probably include this in a grooming meeting. I don't necessarily want to put it into the next grooming meeting. That's my opinion, just because it's our first one. I don't want to like overwhelm anybody with two different milestones, but perhaps the following one.
It might make sense to do a completely separate meeting just about docs.
Like a one-off?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Would you mind setting that up, or one of the other community chairs on this call setting that up?
If you don't mind, I'd like to hold off on that just until we can decide the resources that we'd like to spend. There's a just FYI, there's a something in Jira for the Red Hat folks to do an audit of the docs. So I think we'd want to do this meeting after that gets done.
Sure. Works for me. Is that is that something that has been assigned for this cycle? Or is that like an ongoing task?
It was assigned to Joe, but since he's off doing other things, I think it's not happening.
It was last sprint, and then we bumped it.
All right. Let's. I guess that'll be tackled within the next 6 weeks in that case. So, well, I guess the next 3 weeks, depending on what happens for next sprint. Anyway, this will be covered at some point. So I'm okay with holding off on creating a meeting. All right, retrieve watch namespace in Operator SDK 1.0. Need to create additional resources. So this has to do with the watch namespace environment variable, because that's basically all this function was doing. I don't think that we support that environment variable anymore. Or, you know what, I need to reread the operator scope doc before I comment on this fully, but at the very least, you should just be able to get the operator or the watch namespace environment variable directly within your operator. And if they really need that value, then they can just do that. If they need to do something else with it, then they might need to rework some things. But I'll assign this to myself and follow up. And I'm going to leave this out of the backlog to make sure that I actually follow up on this. Otherwise, it will come up next meeting. Infinite reconcile loop on OpenShift 458.
Yeah,
This looks like Ansible.
Yeah,
it is Ansible.
And it looks like they're misusing the reconcile period.
they really are. You're not supposed to do that. But I wonder why they're saying, like, OpenShift, have they tried another Kubernetes cluster type?
It sounds like they were watching something that OpenShift updates that adds some extra fields that might be triggering the reconcile again.
Well, if you set reconcile period to 0, wouldn't it always cause an infinite reconcile loop?
I would imagine it's undefined behavior, at least.
I would hope so, but we are seeing they are filing about an infinite reconcile loop. So
I can
maybe
look at this one
yeah, cool.
if you want.
Sure.
I mean, it may be as simple as change that period, and or it could be something else. So, or a combo.
Okay. And yeah, we already went over this one. All right, that is it. are our issues that need triaging. Before we go, two things. One, any questions or any particular issues that people would like to discuss in this meeting that we didn't talk about? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Second thing, so we have our first grooming meeting coming up. And basically what that is looking at the next few releases, release milestones in here, and the backlog, and making sure that issues are prioritized correctly. This is going to be our first one, obviously. So we have a pretty straightforward methodology for approaching adding stuff to the milestones. It was in a recent operator framework thread, so you can just go to the operator framework Google group and look up that thread. I believe was from last week, the grouping meeting, to get a sense of the format. Once again, the community chairs will be running it in a rotating manner, treating it very similarly to the any of the existing SDK meetings, except for obviously the format is a little bit different. And if you have any specific items that you would like to see in the upcoming milestones, then put it into the agenda doc that we have linked in that operator framework Google group thread. And we will talk about it during that meeting. Any questions on that?
I just opened up the link that's there, and the meeting link is actually still Blue Jeans, and there is no agenda on that. So I guess we should, we can, Eric, you and I can work that out after the meeting. We can just update that document.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Awesome. All right, thanks everybody. Good meeting.